And I could actually, while that's doing that, I can go to the container file itself, possibly. Oh my goodness. There we go. All right. So we discussed the federated files. We went through that pretty extensively. So container files. So now we're going to walk through container files. So that was a lot of feedback that we got was there was some confusion on container files. There was some confusion on the federated files and those things. So I really wanted to dive into what federated files were, what they're, a lot of those are used for, and what container files. So the container files themselves. So as you can see as an example, and again, this will be in the manual itself, the roadway production container file. So that roadway production container file, again, production. So these are for plan production. So the container file itself, how that's used when you create your sheets. So as you can see in here, it has all the different specialty groups in there. So this roadway plan production container is for roadway plan production only. This roadway container file is not for other specialty groups to reference into their design file. That's not what these are for. These are for production themselves. In your files, in your base files that you're doing, I would highly recommend that everyone for themselves create a working container file that has information and reference files in that file so that they can reference that working container file into their design files. For instance, if I'm working on a roadway project, I want to have a working file that has, and again, this is information so that it's not going to be connected, data connected to other files. So in, let's say, a roadway file, I want to have my geometry referenced in there as its own thing, my terrain file, terrain topo as its own files in there. I want to have those in there because I'm going to be running my corridors using my geometry against my existing terrain. The other files I'm talking about is things such as right-of-way, utilities, drainage, traffic. Any of those things I want to reference those in. But again, I highly recommend creating a working container file that is for a user, specific user, putting your initials on those, that, hey, this is my working container file. So when I'm doing my design, I can reference in that working container file and have that information nested in there so that it shows up when I'm doing my design. At the end of the day, again, because this data travels, whether or not you have it on or not, each file will go in and look for it, and it'll say, okay, well, those are turned off, so I can just bypass those, but it still goes and it looks for them. So the more information you have in a file, the longer it's going to take to open that file, to work in that file, and so on and so forth. So if you have a working container file that has that information that's not going to be data connected, I can reference that in at the beginning of the day. I can detach it at the end of the day. That way it's just one file. It's not 10 or 15. And again, project specific, project dependent, depending on how large the project is, how many files there are, how many specialty groups are working on this. That's where I would recommend doing that as a best practice. Any questions on that before I kind of dive into the file? Okay. Let's go into container file. So in the container file itself, I already have referenced in here quite a few different references. So all of these references, this that I have open right now, as you can see at the top, it kind of runs off the board, but this is going to be my roadway container file for my projects. So right now what I have in here is I have in pretty much every discipline that I want to have in there. The other thing that's going to be provided within the manual are at the appendix, it's going to be called container file setup. There's going to be a container file set up for each specialty group. Again, for the roadway, it's going to give you what those reference files are. The order of these reference files are important because those are in your update sequence. They should be in this same sequence. That sequence meaning similar to priority, not priority exactly, but under update sequence. And I'll show that again for those that may not be familiar with that in referencing. That update sequence, this is how my plans will print from my container file. So it will print first to last. So the very last thing I want is my design, my roadway design, because it is a roadway container file. These are the descriptions and logical names that go with that. Again, we talked a bit about this. I think it was a couple of sessions ago, was descriptions and logical names and the importance of those. Description should match logical name. Again, description within project-wise, for instance, like existing utilities. So if I have UTL, MDL exists, that's going to pertain to my file naming structure. One thing I want to be able to do is if I'm in my references and for my description to match each other of existing utilities, because then if I'm in my references, I can filter through, okay, that's my existing utility. I don't have to worry about what the file name is. I know what the file is by the description, by the logical name itself. Level symbology overrides. What this is again, it's those colors and what the weights should be. Most of these are going to be override off. Some are going to have a few different weights here and there, but very minimal. And nested depth. So again, what's my nesting level through this? And I'll get into that here in a minute too. So, and then also the notes, the levels on and off, and you're going to see a reference transparency. This is mainly just applicable because to drainage plans. But again, we have the column in there. This, as we evolve and keep moving, this is going to be more of a checklist for people, because what we're planning to do as we move forward is have macros that are available to set this up for you. So if I have my roadway project container, I have my reference files, I can run a macro that will mimic what you see on the screen so that you don't have to go through everything and set those up. So that's one thing to know that's coming about as well. So with that container file, this container file setup, what that provides then, you can see right now, everything's just referenced in as normal, just what it is. On the colors, the weights, everything that it is now. Schwab mentioned the view attributes. So the view attributes dialog box, you can see I have level overrides turned off right now. So once I turn that on, you're going to see how everything switches. So again, my level overrides, I'm going to turn that on. And again, once we have those macros set up, it will make life a lot easier for everyone. That's in process. Right now, you're going to see, so in my level overrides, again, it's once you open this, it may be set under symbology for your level manager. It may be set to by level. You change that to overrides. For instance, if I want to come to my topo, I know it's on 25. If I go and I have my checklist, I can look and see that my survey is going to be on 25 for my existing topo planometrics. So it's on 25, override off on weight, nested depth is 0. So I can check that across, and I know that everything is okay. So that's what I go through on these to set that up. That level overrides is set by weight. Again, pulling together a macro to put those things together. What this does, and you can see the roadway design is in color. And what Once we get into printing, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Schwab brought that up a minute ago of what that means from a color map standpoint. So like a 1 through 9, and we'll step through those. Again, it's mainly WYSIWYG. The 1 through 9 is really kind of, okay, those are your main colors that are being used. Those are the main colors that have been set up on the features, the levels, those types of things. So that's how that goes through. So we will go through, so we'll go through those things, Chris, in the printing on what that is. So everything that you want to print out, like proposed kind of darker gray, existing lighter gray. And again, what I'm trying to show, I usually probably won't have a override set on that. So in this instance too, so what I'll do is I'll bring in, it's running so slow. I'll bring in existing utilities just to kind of walk through it real quick and also show this update sequence and how that works. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my utility. So I'll go there. I'll attach that. Okay, and that one's going to be at 0. So my logical name, I'm going to type in existing utilities. And I'm going to bring that in. You're going to see that that pops in. But one of the other things that it does is it pops in on top of everything. So that is used here for update sequence. So you can see, because that was the last thing that I referenced. So depending on the referencing and how you reference those in, under update sequence, I don't want that to print last. I want that to print just over my existing survey. So what I can do is I can update sequence, bring that up, push that down, and you'll see when I hit OK, that's going to drop those back underneath my propose, underneath pretty much everything except my existing survey line work. So it's all in color. And I know that question was asked earlier. Okay, everything's in color. What I can do then is I can go to my existing utilities and find those. And again, logical name. So when I go to my level manager, I can find logical name. Oh, existing utilities. There it is. What I can do is I can pick one of these. I can pick Control A. I can go through. I can come back. I can check. I can say, okay, my existing utilities are on 25. So I'm going to select my color. I'm going to go to 25. I know everything is on my existing level that it needs to be. I can also select this. I can just pick override off for all these just to double check, make sure we're good. Now my existing utility, so everything is set up in here. The important part about a container file and all of these references in here, this is where your planned production is controlled. If you attach new files, if you change color, you change level, you turn on and off files or turn on and off levels, this is the area you do it in, is your container file for your production. There's one place to manipulate everything, to change everything, to stay consistent. This is one place that you do that. The reason for one container file, let's say you have a bigger project, you have 50 sheets. Well, if I have 50 sheets, I'm not going to put all those 50 sheets in one file because then I'm never probably going to open it again if I have this many references. I'm going to split those into the 5 to 7 sheets. We've talked about in the past that that's kind of the threshold of, okay, I want 5 or 7 sheets in a file. So when I do that, those 5 or 7 sheets in file 1, file 2, file 3, file 4 are all referencing that exact same container file. So whatever is manipulated in here works across all of my roadway plans, which is what I want. Let's say oh crap, I forgot to put in my road or my right-of-way file. So instead of going into every single file and referencing in right-of-way, I can go to one place, reference in my right-of-way file, it will show up in every one of those 50 sheets of my planned productions. So I'm doing it one time, not 50 times. So that's one of the probably the most important thing about a container file is the efficiency and moving forward in that. Jody.
What's best practice for geometry? I've
For
I've done these in the past where I've set up this drawing production thing, and I'm trying to figure out if the geometry should be in this production file or separated out.
So we've gone back and forth on that one where you bring in geometry into a separate file or you put it in this one. We've come to the conclusion, especially with like the name boundaries. And again, you'd reference in the name boundaries into this file. So when you create your sheets, you create them from this file. I would recommend putting your geometry in this file. And one of the things that we recommend doing is doing your annotation in your drawing models in your sheets, because then that way you can manipulate if you need to move stationing up or down, or maneuver it a little bit because it's on top of a wall or something else. I can do that. But I put my geometry in this container file, and that reason is because then I want to make sure that I have everything going forward from one specific location. So for instance, I have a geometry file. Let's say it's a federated file because I've got 20 different geometries. And then all of a sudden, oh, hey, we're adding this into our project. It's within our project limits, so we need to add that geometry in. I can add that geometry in my federated file, which will propagate through here because of my design file and having a nested depth of 1. The reason for that, again, is this is a federated file that contains all my corridors. So I have a nested depth of 1 for that reason, so that my container file can see that. I would do the same thing with my geometry. So my geometry is a federated file. When I reference it in, I use a nested depth of 1, and you will also see that in the container file setup. So you can see the design is as 1. The geometry container is 1. That's the reason for that, of why those are nested as 1, because they're federated files bringing information across. Again, notice this is the container file for our roadway plans. Well, those are all my corridors. So again, we're trying to get to one, efficiency and consistency, and not having multiple files that we have to maintain and make sure that everything, like this file matches this file, because it's the same file. We just want to have one file is what we're trying to get to. So with the geometry, same thing. I want to just have geometry in here. So then if it's manipulated, it's through one place and not a bunch of different places. Any other questions on the container file?
So the nested depths, and thank you, Jeremy, for that point. Nested depths is actually so we don't reference over and over the same file or files. That's just we attaching. So if we say like a corridor nested 1, I think it's going to show that terrain, existing terrain.
No, it should not, because your corridor design file should not have your terrain referenced into that. Because you have different corridor files that you're referencing into a blank federated file that feeds all that information. So what we're showing is we're showing the 2D line work from that federated file, but it's the 2D feature lines that are coming from my template and my model. So whenever my models or my corridors are updated, that line work is being updated. So it's being updated through my corridors, through my federated files, through my containers. Again, it's one place where things are getting updated, not multiple places.
Perfect. That's why I want to, because I think that can confuse me. Also, okay, my corridor, which one I'm gonna, so that's good. Geometry, if we say depth of one, that's imply we have also the terrain. So, because um, so we want to make sure that the right file is attached to the container, so it doesn't we don't show terrain 100 times in addition of the terrain.
Exactly. Yep. Yep, that's exactly right. So what it does is it reduces a lot of rework of trying to go back and forth and match different things up. Is this the same? Is this the same? Is this the same? Versus I'm more concentrating on what I'm designing, what my design intent is for my model, and how we're moving that forward. Versus does my model match my line work that I drew over here? It's more, do I have the correct taper? Is my taper long enough? Are my radiuses correct? Are they meeting criteria?
Very good. I think in the future we will be also providing training on this more and more in the future. Additional training.
Right. And I guess just to kind of reiterate too, Sahara, on the geometry. So like you'll have a geometry file and you'll have that terrain in there. What that federated geometry does is that federated geometry, I'm just referencing in my geometry from, so I'll have all my different geometries referenced in that blank file. So when I reference that federated geometry as a nested depth of one, it's only going to pull that geometry, that the existing topography stays in the base geometry file itself.
Exactly, because we've seen a lot of file reference with a lot of reference that's showing over and over, like as this is provide like just a best practice and a good way of making sure that you only see what you need. And so.
And trust me, there's been a lot of brain damage over the years trying to get to these things. Because again, a lot of us, I was working on inroads when it was owned by Intergraph before Bentley even bought it. So knowing that, inroads was the data and MicroStation was the line work and the graphics. That difference now of having that data in the file itself, so all the data, all the line work, everything, all the attributed information, is why we've had to adapt and move to some other methods of how we operate from a production standpoint, is because of the size of the files and because of the size of how everything comes together. That's why sometimes if we have too many things, that's why our files start to really get overrun, is because we're carrying too much information. So the way that we can, again, that federated information, how we can federate that out is going to just help us in the long run.
Yep. Good. Thank you.
So any other questions on containers? All right. So Sahara, if you want to stop running there, I will open up